Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Passion Institute podcast. I'm really excited about having Winifred Bonnie here today. She is a global keynote speaker and a leadership and change expert. And she's really there in terms of redefining motivation for a changing world. Now, like many of our guests, her CV is huge. She's not just a motivational speaker, she is an agent of change. So she talks a lot about transformational, about fatigue and burnout, and works with organizations that want their people to show up more bolder and more energized and to get them moving. She's been doing this work for over 2 decades around leadership and business and behavioral strategy. And some of the topics that she speaks about is backing yourself, having frictionless change, and modern motivation. Welcome, Winifred.
Thank you so much for having me, Shivani.
Yeah. And the first question I always want to know is when it comes to, your life, if we kind of have to look at some of those one or two key transformational moments, and sometimes they're really positive things, and other times they're these like really challenging things that happen in our life. Take us through a couple of those in terms of, what are these things that have made you into who you are?
I think the two foundational ones are, first of all, my parents. Coming to Australia. I mean, my mom. I was born in London, so when my mom migrated first to London, she couldn't speak English, and she, there's no YouTube back then to give you insight into what countries were like and how they operate and what they physically look like and things like that, and so I think a lot of like their hustle, their work ethic has transferred to me and shaped who I am. But I'm also very deeply appreciative and very respectful of all the sacrifices that they have made to give us a different kind of life. And yeah, I think for most of my career, my mum didn't really sort of understand what I did for a living. But it's been so beautiful because she takes so much joy in me speaking. She finds it interesting and fascinating that people want to hear me speak. And so that's fundamentally what shaped me. I guess, we moved from London to Australia when I was about 4 or 5. Um, and so growing up in a very, Anglo-Saxon, community, I was the only person of color in school. I think a lot of those experiences shaped me and who I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. I can so relate to some of that. Vinitha, tell me a little bit about this word passion. Obviously, our podcast is called Passion Institute. Tell me, what does this word passion mean for you, and how does it kind of transpire in your life?
Hmm. Um, for me, passion is something that I'm a very spiritual person, so I would say passion is something that's like ignited within me, as opposed to me choosing or consciously choosing or making a decision on something to ignite me. Um, for me, it's what I call a calling in my life, and the passion is around my life is to be a good steward of that calling, to take really good care of that calling on my life, and to do that to the best of my ability. And that also means like the way that I live my life. It's not just in terms of the business or the career. It's also, I have a 2-month-old niece, and just seeing her little round face, ignites a lot of, passion for me. I think it's a fuel for life, but it's something that comes through me, as opposed to me igniting that. That said, I have realized that in business, we can have what I call like emotional burnout. So finding those sources to keep that fire going and to kind of kindle it away and to keep it burning is really important. So that's some of the things that I've been working on, is trying to find those little pieces of inspiration and ensuring that I'm being fueled up as I continue on with the work.
Yeah, great. You do a lot of work with people. So you are working with organizations, doing the work that you're doing. What do you see when you're working with the clients? What are some of the tips or strategies that you've seen work to create more passionate people in the workforce?
I think the two ones that I've found have been quite effective for me and the clients that I've worked with and the teams in those client organizations is actually taking them outside of the office, reconnect them back to the why, or finding their own, working with them to find what their greater why is. Sometimes that's not going to come from work. That's fuel that needs to be fired up outside of work. I think so often we can have expectations that work should fulfill all our needs, and like any relationship dynamic, putting all the onus and responsibility on one singular entity or person to fulfill all those needs can be actually become quite toxic. But I think fundamentally, it's taking people outside and whether it's taking people out, for example, in the retail space, taking people out to a distribution center. Have they been there? Have they seen how it works? Do they understand the ins and outs? Have they done some of those roles for a little bit to get an appreciation of how everything works? Um, Visiting stores and just talking to customers and taking the time to do that, because we can get so locked into our computers and get so locked into the work and get so locked into results that it's like it takes the humanness out of things. And so by getting outside of the office, um, it gives us an opportunity to put the humanness back into the work and to understand, why are we doing this? I mean, is it just to get a paycheck? Is it just to keep our bums warm? Or is it something much bigger than that? So that's been the two things that I think have been really helpful. The other one is, we don't need to know everyone intimately, but I guess having a space to be a bit more vulnerable and share parts of ourselves with other team members in a safe, and respectful way has been also really beneficial, because when I understand the person beyond the role, um, I want to show up. Again, there's that fire ignited within me of like, I have a better understanding, I have a better connection to that person. I want to show up and serve and help that person in a completely different way than just completing a task.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is always a tricky one because I think of all the years in business and all the things you've done, how do we get it to a couple of top learnings? What are a couple of learnings that you're seeing from amazing leaders? Or what have been some of your lessons around leadership and seeing people succeed in business? I'd love to get your view on that.
Yeah, so the first one was one that I shared at a mentoring event last week, which was rather than being interesting, be interested. And that was something, a mantra, I guess, that was shared with me. And so often as leaders, there can be this expectation that we need to be giving constant directives, we need to be putting out fires, we need to be leading all the time. And sometimes what we need to be doing is just creating that space for things to emerge. Coaching as a communication mode and coaching conversations has become a bit more common now with leadership development training. And organizations are realizing that that's now a skill that we need our leaders to go through. And that's about creating space for the unknown to emerge and for people to share things. So I think creating spaces for that have been really beneficial to organizations that I've had the privilege of working with. Um, and yeah, I guess the other one is just a really, really simple one, which is what I shared before, which is getting outside of the office, reconnecting, particularly with the leadership team. We can be so distanced away from our customers. Our customers often is represented through data, and taking out the time to get to know individuals and sit with them and talk with them and um, feel their energy and have our intuition informed by those experiences has been really beneficial too.
Mm, there's quite a lot in there in terms of what you said. I was just thinking about a couple of the things that you said in there. Um, but I'm really always interested in people in terms of how do they deal with challenges. So when challenges come your way, have you got a process, a system, a ritual? How do you go about breaking it down?
Um, I think unfortunately the gift of hardship in life has been dealing with crises really well. So, because when life gets really hard, or if you've experienced any trauma, the brain and the body goes to work pretty much immediately. Well, it has been for me. And so I've been able to leverage that as a skill I've had, particularly in the diversity and inclusion space, I've had a lot of moments of crisis with some of the clients that I've worked with. Um, and so for me, the number one thing is to take the emotion out of it. So I think in those moments that people tend to be very fueled by emotion, it's putting some structure in. So having next steps, step one, step two, step three. What are your actions? What are my actions? What are our actions? I feel like when people have some structure, it kind of creates like a boundary line around some of those emotions and perhaps helps to contain them as well. Um, and and then it's about for giving people with some of the support. And sometimes that is emotional support. It's about acknowledging the emotions in the moment. That this is really difficult. This is really challenging, or that this happened on your watch. Um, as leaders, we feel that sense of onus and responsibility that we need to be across everything. We can't. And sometimes things do happen, particularly if you've got a team underneath you that are like 3,000 strong. It's impossible to be across every single detail. And so sometimes it is just being that friend in that moment and saying that reassurance and validating their emotions in that moment, that this is hard, this is difficult, pardon me, this is uncomfortable. And then very quickly, very swiftly going into action. So my number one strength, according to the Gallup Strength Finder test, is problem solving. And so for me, it's the ability to think very quickly on the spot about what are the next actions that we need to be taking. It's very hard to define that into a process or a system. It's just something that happens in my brain. I'm a lateral thinker as well. But I think for me, I try and get fed with enough information at that moment to be able to make a decision. So asking inquiry-based questions, digging beneath the surface, trying to understand the things that are unsaid for whatever reason, to really clue into the situation have been really helpful to help formulate my mind around what the next steps are. But it's giving them that sense of reassurance. Like in a lot of clients, I've just given them that emotional reassurance that I'm here with you. We're going to walk through this together. I have a really good network of people around me, other thought leaders, that I pull in as long as they've got the budget. I pull in, and we create a little team around that executive team or that leadership team. And that gives them that support in that moment to go through those hard times. But importantly, what it's about coming on the other side and saying, how has this made our business better? How has this made us better? What's the opportunity here that we didn't see, that has emerged from this crisis? And being grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Winifred, you've done lots of different things in your life already. What are some of your future passions? What are some of the other things you want to do, accomplish, create? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I have two I guess visions. One is working with women in the Pacific around leadership and entrepreneurship. And the other one is I guess going more broader, so working with Black and brown women of color in different countries in Africa and in India and Sri Lanka and Pakistan and South America and in the islands as well, and really support them with the tools to be not just great leaders, but to be exceptional leaders in their families, in their communities, in the workplaces, and in their businesses as well. And it's about supercharging them with tools and inspiration and empowerment to really create the change that they wish to see in their families and their communities. So that's the kind of broader vision that fuels me. And now that I have a new niece, I sometimes think, oh, will she take on that work one day? Or it will be up to her. But and I guess for me more personally, it is traveling the world. I feel like I have been working most of my life. Well, yeah, most of my life. Even when I did the ATO check of how many hours and how many weeks I worked. I mean, some weeks I did work only 4 hours, but I pretty much worked every single week. This last financial year, I only took 1 week off. And that was when my niece was born. So it's to see the world, experience the world, talk to different people, hear their stories. Um, it's to travel the world and experience the world.
I love that. That's great. And, these days we speak a lot more around mental health. And so take us through some of the things that you do to manage your own mental health, whether it be physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever elements. And what do you do? Do you do things weekly, daily, yearly? Like tell me about the cadence of that as well.
Yeah, I would say I've learned that the hard way. And it's still something that I am working on. I don't do it perfectly every day. I guess in an ideal day, I would wake up with a sense of gratitude, um, do 10 minutes of yin yoga or relaxation yoga, to really move the cortisol out of my body that's built up. Um, and do some reading of some spiritual texts that I have, and then go to the gym. So for me, it's like I have to get into action straight away. I have learned over time that I'm not, unfortunately, one of those people that have the luxury of just sitting in bed and having a coffee for a couple of hours, because my head just starts going. So I have to get up and get stuck into action. Sometimes the thing for my mental health is actually to spend 2 hours working, to get out of bed and spend 2 hours working. And yeah, I just, for me, journaling, I've tried journaling so many times over the years. Doing that first thing in the morning just does not help. For me, I might be working on something for a client, and then all of a sudden the thought will drop. So for me, that's how my insights, sort of, emerge for me. I will listen to a podcast, and an insight will pop up for me, or it will emerge for me. Connection is really important. I'm in my naughty 40s now, so a lot of my friends are in different stages of their life than what I am in. So for me, it has making friends. I've had to put a lot more effort and time and energy into that. But having people to connect with, to talk to, people that have good energy, people that have similar visions, people that have similar sort of energy, um, around serving the world, doing their best, not getting stuck, not trying to control their life, but really surrender. Like, my philosophy around my own life is around surrender and acceptance and being of service and things like that. And so aligning myself with people like that has been really great for my mental health as well. And then moving to the Gold Coast, which I did like 2.5 years ago. Just the ocean, I'm an island girl, so the ocean is just like so healing for me and just so magical. Every time I put my bare feet on that sand, a smile comes on my face. Every time I put it in salt water, it's just so good. And this time of year, there are whales migrating, and they're like they don't know this yet, but they are like my spirit animal. So, um, just watching them, just brings so much joy as well.
Yeah, beautiful. I could visualize there with your feet in the sand there.
Yeah.
We're pretty lucky in terms of where we get to live.
Yeah.
Winifred, tell us about what's the best platforms for people to find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I guess the benefits of having an ethnic name is I've got winitha.com. So that's a great place to connect and get to know me and know what I'm all about. My social media handles are connected there. So Winitha, winitha.com. I hang out a lot on LinkedIn. I'm not really on Instagram much these days, but I do post on Instagram and Spotify and YouTube and things like that. But the place that I hang out the most is LinkedIn. I learn a lot. I try and share valuable content with people. So they're probably the two best places.
Awesome. I am so grateful. We'll hang out for a few couple of minutes after this. I'm so grateful that we could get that in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.